Welcome to Rush Mode, our podcast with three 10-minute topics. I'm Rad.
Nah, I'm Matt.
Before we get into our topics, I just want to say if you've enjoyed these podcasts or you've got ideas for topics, definitely leave those in the comments, subscribe, and like the video. Yeah, I guess we'll first get into our first topic. So the first topic might be a little bit raunchy. So if you're not into that, then you can watch a different video, I guess. So Richtofen and Schuster have, well, I guess there's a somewhat of a theory that Richtofen and Dr. Schuster had maybe a gay relationship, maybe they were just close friends. Gonna talk about that. So what are your first initial thoughts on that theory?
I mean, I don't know much from the Schuster side, so I guess it could go either way for me. But I think there's enough evidence to point that yes, Richtofen definitely is gay. I think that the first time it was in Call of the Dead, right? Where it's the Dempsey lever quote, like, oh, what is it? They're looking for a light or something, right? When they're being interacted with, and then Richtofen's like, oh, I'm holding on to something, and Dempsey's like, no, that's not a lever. And then I think in Shangri-La, Richtofen seems to be interested in Nikolai. So yeah, I think
it's like some ambiguously suggestive, at least, and innuendos and Kano and
yes,
ascensions.
Yeah, just more general kind of the Richtofen being perverted and talking about liking the zombies, but yeah, I think in terms of anything more normal and actual I guess interaction with the other characters, I think it's probably Call of the Dead and Shangri-La. And I know Shangri-La's, there's also the quote, because we had to verify it to look up, right, where he says whenever he gets a certain gun, he says it has a long barrel or something, like his roommate in college. So maybe Schuster was the roommate in college.
Maybe. With Richtofen, I always originally just thought of him as just because he's kind of gone insane. He's just kind of not necessarily fascinated with just, I guess, sexuality, just more just the human body.
Yeah.
Just the way that, because he'll talk about corpses the same way. Like, I'll bathe naked in your blood, all that. And then also there's at one point, I think, in the Juggernaut, when he listens to the Juggernaut jingle, he says something like, "She sounds like a sweet little specimen."
Yeah,
I don't know.
When he gets hit, right? Doesn't he say, "Oh, it's so erotic" or something like that? So yeah, the initial display of Richtofen wasn't.
Just everything's a little sexual.
Yeah,
but
just a little.
Yeah, just a little. But the Schuster side of this kind of comes in. I mean, you could just extrapolate what you wanted with the way they talk in Moon, but in Classified, there is a audio reel where Richtofen's kind of explaining to Schuster what his plan is with Operation Stapler, where he's like, I'm going to send some of Group 935 to America, some to Russia. And then he's like, cheer up, Dr. Schuster, I have asked for you to go to the Americans. And it'll be good for your, and he kind of pauses and says, softer side. So he's kind of, isn't there a whole thing with, I know Richtofen's not a Nazi, but the secret gay Nazis or something.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that too.
I mean, to be clear, Nazis were extremely anti-homosexual. So,
the reaction.
I mean, Richtofen's very flamboyant. Anyway.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the whole softer side thing, at least implies you can interpret it that they know each other intimately. Right. Or some form of intimacy. Maybe they're just friends.
I would say they definitely are pretty close, considering the fact he's his confidant. He chooses Schuster to help him with the MTD, and then further than that, he gives him access to Griffin Station and Shangri-La. So, and then in this, they're kind of on a first name. Obviously, we don't know Schuster's first name, but Schuster refers to him as Edward, and
yeah,
he kind of seems to get Richtofen's bullshit and kind of calls him out on it.
They're definitely close. I think that's a given. The only thing that's interesting about that, because this comes from Classified, right? So it kind of, there's a little bit of not a retcon, but it makes you wonder, I guess, about his fidelity, because he would still he was experimenting on Nikolai and Dempsey and them around this time, and he seems to have an interest in them. I think even later, doesn't he make the comment about Dempsey being all muscle bound or whatever? And I swear there's something in Alpha Omega where Dempsey says that the Doctor keeps poking him and like enjoying that a little bit too much. So I don't know. I guess
Right. I could see definitely it maybe before he kind of went insane. It started as just maybe they were developing something.
yeah.
Not even necessarily a gay relationship, just like really good friends, but him kind of going insane kind of put a barrier between them. It's just got roped into this whole conspiracy against Maxis, and then he gets sent to America, and there he's involved in a conspiracy with Burnell. He just keeps getting yanked around, and I would like for him to have a happy end.
A one night stand turns into you getting roped into like Nazi super soldier experiments.
Right.
So
I do want to throw out though that he definitely survived the Pentagon outbreak because there was what I think so he's in the Nuketown loading screen. Like they show that in one of the comics that it's Schuster that's kind of commanding it. And then the blueprint for that drill is like I think it says it gets finished the next year, like 1964. So that would mean he would have to survive past 1963. So I like to believe, he survived the Pentagon stuff, and then he just went to live on his own.
He's probably sick and tired of everyone's bullshit at that point.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay. And he definitely doesn't sound German. He sounds British. So I would assume he just was one of the international.
Maybe it's his roommate. Maybe it's his roommate from college, right?
Yeah. See. He probably just. I mean, imagine he mostly just stuck around with Richtofen just because he trusts him so much. I doubt because he did seem also pretty. Like he did not like Maxis. He didn't like the whole Nazi affiliation with the 935. So he just wanted to. He believed in like a pure kind of international 935 as opposed to the Nazi one.
Now, maybe I'm misremembering, but I think another indication, didn't it seem like even though Richtofen was playing both sides, that he maybe at least saw more of an advantage to what he could get out of the Americans than the Russians? Because I don't think there's any indication, right, that the Soviets, he fared any better. Like, it seems like, at least from the storyline, like everything with Camp Edward and Broken Arrow seemed to have been the better end of the stick. Because he sends Schuster to America, and then, right, because it doesn't, when he sends, is it Porter to Ascension Group, and you think he doesn't like Porter, so I'm just saying there could be more credibility to the theory that maybe he had a softer spot, or at least pragmatically realized that he could get more out of the Americans, and then he sends Schuster to America. So
he definitely sent him to America because he likes him.
Yeah.
I mean, he saw the future. He knows exactly where he needs to be. But I do think there is a level of like he would like him to be safe and not in a
that's what I mean.
A gulag. Not have his eye cut out by Khrushchenko. So
yes,
there's definitely there is something there, regardless of if it's like that kind of relationship. But I don't think there's much else on Schuster's side, just apart from him seemingly not being impotent, but like just kind of he's not as assertive as like Richtofen is. Like the way like after Maxis and Richtofen are kind of arguing over the MTD and how it's like this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Schuster's just kind of off to the side, and then when Maxis leaves, he's like under his breath, he's like bloody jerk,
Mm.
So I guess that's his softer side. If you wanted to interpret it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I could take it that way, right? Like you're thinking about the Gulag and everything. Send them to the United States, because would be less of a fallout if things go south.
Right. And I mean, also he can trust him, and I guess the American side would have. He would need some trust there, so. Yeah, I think it's a good enough discussion on that topic. I was looking forward to that one.
Well, there it is.
Okay, so our next topic is a question, kind of a meta one. Does Call of Duty as a franchise hold zombies back or push it forward? So I guess like, does having that big budget and all the marketing kind of boost the zombies, or do you think it it would be better as more of like an indie series. What do you think, Matt?
I think it's tough. I think it's easier to say the benefits that zombies brings to Call of Duty as a whole, but I really got to think about it. The first thing that comes to mind though is I feel like Call of Duty has hindered zombies in some sense, that since it's tied to the specific installment, and then we shift from Infinity Ward to Treyarch to then when we had the 3-year development cycle with, like, what was it, Sledgehammer, Ravensoft, um, and maybe they're more lenient now, but back then, you would have never seen a standalone zombies game, so you were always waiting for kind of like the 2 installments later to catch you up where you left off. So the story and kind of mode was hindered because if you just like the general gameplay elements of Call of Duty, I mean, I know they do differ based on each installment, but if you're not invested in like the story or the setting, and you like that overall, each year you have something. But if you're really interested in zombies, and particularly like Ether, you'd have to wait, and I don't know, it just seemed like a lot of that hindered what could have been, turned into its own spin-off series at some point. I mean, now I think is probably the best chance they have, considering that they're still updating Warzone. They want to integrate stuff with mobile. Like, maybe they feel that it won't cannibalize the interest in Warzone and multiplayer to sort of have their own like third franchise. Maybe Cold War does become the standalone zombies game, but I think that's just the first glaring thing that I can think of is kind of how it was held back.
Right. I mean, another way, like, it is held back in the sense that, I mean, before they had I guess the highest budget they had, which was Black Ops 3. Before that, the setting of zombies was very tied to the setting of the campaign and the multiplayer, just because it's all in the same engine. You only have so much time to work on it and so much money, so you need to reuse those same assets for the most part. They just kind of work with what they get. But I mean, on the other hand, that a lot of the charm of zombies is that they work with what they've got. They make a lot out of a little. Which, I mean, you get the same thing with like an indie game. But I don't think zombies would have taken off like it did if it was not hacked in with one of the biggest media franchises of all time,
That is true. I think the exposure, the Call of Duty name would bring to zombies, I think you wouldn't have gotten that elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that, I think that is kind of true. I was thinking it more from the zombie side, but yeah, it makes more sense that Activision, if you were in Activision and you wanted to have more fun and leeway with the game, I guess it kind of works out that you get that exposure. But I mean, it seems people know it, so I think it definitely worked out where it's like in the zeitgeist, and even there's like nostalgic like memes about Call of Duty zombies, so everyone seems to remember them to some extent.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I would also say, like, it's kind of held back in like the public sphere, like the way that people perceive zombies when they don't know it. Like, if you try to talk to somebody online that has a preconceived notion about Call of Duty, like what it is as a franchise, it's generic popcorn. I guess, well, I mean, popcorn movie, but like popcorn shooter, I guess. Same, the equivalent, just it's generic shooter, but under the surface there's a bit more, and then zombies there's clearly quite a bit more. But there is that level of people not really taking the idea of it being deeper than that seriously, just because it's in Call of Duty.
Well, I think it's like because you have so many layers. Because the first thing that I think of is, you could say the same thing about the campaign. Where, I mean, most people are probably buying it for the multiplayer, and ironically, Call of Duty started off, I think, just as a campaign, just a regular story game. But I think people don't. I wouldn't be surprised if more casual players don't even realize there's a distinction between Infinity and Treyarch. And so when you have the story, people don't really pay attention to, and then that's fine. It's not for everyone. I mean, Call of Duty's known for being a multiplayer shooter, and then you have this sort of like spin-off mode that then the story of the spin-off mode is sort of told through, or at least the bulk of it has been told through radios, Easter eggs, stuff like that. There's just so many layers that, you don't expect people to really grasp the depth of it.
Right. I bet they're the same kind of. Well, in another way, it's like it is kind of frustrating sometimes. I'm at the point now where I'm kind of just buying. I only really bought Cold War for the zombies because I didn't expect the campaign to be good, which it ended up being good. But like, just we're kind of only playing Call of Duty for zombies a lot of the times. I mean, a lot of people are, but I mean, there's a lot of people now that do everything. But if you're just playing for one mode, it doesn't feel as valuable, and that's kind of always been a problem. Like, I would only buy like the DLCs for
The
past
zombies.
games just
Yeah.
for the zombie map on it. It's like $15. So there's that kind of thing. And on the flip side, like if you don't care about all this zombie shit, you're like, why is this in here? There's some reviews I see for like the newest Black Ops, and they'll be like, and then there's zombies. It's okay, it's fun for like a couple minutes, but like it's nothing special.
I would love to see like if they've done internal polling, whatever sort of data Treyarch relies on, because everything I have is like anecdotal. But I always remember seeing streams where, even in the Black Ops 4 era, when they were announcing like the next DLC, and all the comments were just like zombies, zombies. We want to see zombies. I'm just gonna buy this game for the zombies. So even if people don't really grasp the storyline because it's kind of sometimes it's convoluted. Although I think there seems to be, at least now, an understanding that the storyline's kind of wacky and convoluted, and you have to do it through Easter eggs. So I think there's that, because there was a lot of like jokes I've seen about the COD storyline requiring like just like a massive amount of time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think there's a sizable portion of people who are just like, yeah, we just want the zombies mode. So I'd love to see like data, like what is the most played and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, assuming it did get the traction in the beginning, like say World at War. You think it would have been? You think zombies would have been improved if it were its own standalone thing, and like an entire game's budget is devoted to? It wouldn't be a Call of Duty budget, obviously, but it's devoted to one mode and one set of
Oh,
assets.
that's that's weird for me to think about, because at that point in time, I mean, the Treyarch Infinity Ward, I mean, they were just military shooters. I guess did they? Maybe Treyarch and Infinity Ward. Who did someone do work on Tony Hawk's? I forget. But for the most part, their
Yep.
repertoire of games were just Call of Duty. So imagining anything outside of that is it's really hard for me. Where I can only conceive it as it would have to come prepackaged with the Call of Duty. So maybe after World at War, if it was really well received. I mean, I know, wasn't there like a scrapped like Roman Wars? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be
I'm just
interesting.
thinking, like, not even Activision umbrella, just like
Oh,
if this was like some indie title, it wouldn't have
it'd be like the
the same
Sniper Elite.
gunplay as the
Yeah.
Call of Duty. Yeah, it would be its own thing, but just the same ideas, same development team. They just don't have all the tools that they have.
That's hard, because I think at that point in time, because I love the Sniper Elite Nazi zombie army, but I think at least some of it was inspired by Treyarch, because Treyarch zombies, because it came after that. Even the dynamic, the cast of characters, for some part mirrored the way sort of Ultimis was, except I think there's two Germans. But I think the only like Nazi zombie shooter was like Wolfenstein. So it's hard to think like, yeah, would there have been an indie shooter without kind of Call of Duty taking that? Because I mean that's the only game I can think of that really played into that sort of Nazi occult genre. It was just Wolfenstein at that time.
I guess this question kind of came up just because I was wondering, like, or I was thinking, like, whenever Call of Duty, I mean, Activision inevitably in the future, like far future, Call of Duty didn't sell that well. They kind of stopped making them. Eventually either they sell the IP or like even just it doesn't. It's just in the void. I'm just thinking like zombies is kind of stuck with Activision. It can't be a own thing, I guess, until it's a public domain.
Huh.
I'll be dead by then, but
I don't know. I mean, Call of Duty is such an amorphous title that like you could just completely kill all the storylines we have right now and have 30 years worth of, because every installment could just be a self-contained story. But yeah,
I totally would like to see the doc. I would like to have a Doctor Strange vision, see the future. Like, how many Call of Duties can they possibly make?
I mean, certain franchise. I think it's almost like FIFA or any of the sports games. Every year, um, they keep making them, and obviously it's based on real world sports. But I think there can be a parallel to Call of Duty, where I think there's enough popularity among just sort of general players that you don't need to have it specifically tied to something for the brand to continue.
We'll see our Black Ops remake number 2. They'll do 2 remakes in the course of the next 50 years.
Well,
We'll see it.
they were supposed to do something for World at War's anniversary. I'm still waiting on that.
That's a game that needs to be remade.
Mm-hmm. The Black Ops bundle, Master Chief Collection.
You're killing me. Anyway, good topic. So our last topic of the night is about George Romero. So how did George Romero come across his notes on Group 935 and Shangri-La and Ultimis? So we know from the Call of the Dead and outro cutscene, he talks about finding this research. He was doing research for a World War II movie. And he discovered stuff about Element 115, necromancers, raising the dead. And then we find out in Revelations there's a radio from someone named Sally, who was like his assistant. And she talks about how he had notes on Ulta. Through his research, she was trying to find the cast of Call of the Dead, and following the research trail, she ended up in Shangri-La. So how does that all tie in? Like, why does he know about all that? Where did he get it from? That's the big questions of the night. So, first thoughts?
I think there's a couple different avenues we could take. I mean, the first one and the more conspiratorial is maybe it was like a setup or something like that. Was there an informant from like Broken Arrow, or maybe someone was trying to nudge them in that direction? Yeah, Russman. Yeah, exactly. He's the leaker. In that direction, that they were being fed too good information. I feel like the trailer sets it up though that maybe it's like a whistleblower, or like someone found, some investigative journalist or something found these old documents that were thought to be sealed away. Like it seemed there was more of an indirect connection, and like just as now, there's an interest in sort of Nazi occultism. Maybe that's all that was required was Romero. Which Rad, you brought up a good point that he only makes zombie movies, so for him making a World War II movie was a little strange, but maybe it was a Nazi zombie movie all along.
Well, he does do other horror movies, but it could have been.
Yeah, some type
it definitely
of
had to be horror inspired.
Yeah, some type of World War II occult. So I think maybe that's just enough. Like he had an interest in occult stuff, and because for the most part, I mean, that's just seen as conspiratorial. I mean, most people aren't really looking into it, and maybe he was in contact with the right people at the right place at the right time and got some sensitive information. Because I get like kind of like right now where people know there was the Nazis had an interest in the occult, but to the degree to which they were or weren't successful, or how much people really know, is kind of relegated to whether or not you're really interested in the topic. But the last thing I wanted to throw around was it doesn't seem to be the case for George Romero in his actual biography, but there's a lot of I know Stan Lee was one, and I can't think of other producers, but they seem to have a history of being recruited by like the U.S. military to make like propaganda films, or so. It would be interesting if maybe there's something with Romero being hired by like the government to make films or something like that, and maybe that's how he got in contact with sort of
maybe he was
sensitive information.
Supposed to go to Siberia to like scope out the area or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there could be something there. But my gut is on the fact that he was just probably interested in conspiracy, and maybe through some leaker or something like that, maybe it was Russman, someone was able to feed him some information.
Right.
I don't think there's a direct connection as far as I know.
I did look into when I was interested in this topic a while back. He had kind of the making of Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the first zombies piece of fiction really out there. It was like voodoo inspired stuff, but this was like the modern zombie, the way you think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it came out in October 1st, 1968. That's like about around the time that Purnell kind of crazy and new management. Now I would fully believe that someone could have definitely leaked from Broken Arrow stuff to him. Maybe even just a friend on the inside. He just kind of shared some details. He's like, "Oh, that'd be an interesting movie." And so that's where this first zombie movie kind of came from in 1968. It's Night of the Living Dead. And the interesting thing about that movie, it's a great movie, definitely worth watching just for the history alone. In that movie, the way that the zombies come about isn't like just a plague. It's something about a satellite from Venus that's carrying something that kind of crashed to Earth and that kind of created everything. It's a lot different than I would have expected from that era. But
It's almost like
you could kind of draw like 115 comparisons.
Yeah, like the creative liberties taken. If he did
Right.
hear stuff about 115 and meteorites and
Exactly. So I think that World War II, studying for a World War II movie, might have been just a cover. That's kind of like, or maybe even, he knew all this stuff before, but now he like wanted to make a movie about Ultimis, and he's gonna shoot it in Siberia, but replace Ultimis with this cast of 4 characters, and maybe that's why specifically it was 4 survivors. Yeah, he seemed interested in Ultimis, so I wonder if he definitely had to have information from like the Pentagon, because they were the ones that were kind of looking into the Samantha incidents and all those places that they popped up, like in Shangri-La 50s, and then the 935 facilities and all that.
I think at the very least there has to be some mediator between Romero and the information, because the connection between him and the government. And I imagine to some extent that this stuff is sensitive information, but maybe some of it is just relegated to hearsay and conspiracy, where there's sort of that plausible deniability that even though the public may be aware of it, people just assume like the Roswell crash, like, oh, maybe it is something extraterrestrial, maybe it's not. But so there's something that led him in that direction, but to get where he is with the whole Siberian base, there had to have been someone who was an intermediary. I think you could say that at least.
Well, how about this angle? So you've got him. What if he was corrupted by the Shadow Man? But it's not quite like he just wants ultimate power. He just wants to make a really good movie. That's
maybe he wasn't corrupted. That. Maybe he because I like the. I'll take it.
Made a deal with the Shadow Man.
Yeah. I was gonna say one step further. He was just.
The Shadow Man knew about the Siberian facility because remember he was sending. Maybe he was sending him to get that artifact that the reporter couldn't get.
Mm-hmm. Huh? I think that's what it was. I think the George Romero was just looking for.
Falcon Blood was there too. That's almost everything for the seal of duality. Okay, go on. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was gonna say. I just think he just wanted to make a kick-ass movie, and he's I guess looking for any patron that would support him and any deity or whatever, and he struck a bargain with the Shadow Man. He's like, yeah, I'll make a kick-ass movie. That's fine.
Right. In exchange, he'll acquire the real vessel, and the Apothicon Blood's going to take over his body. That's my assumption to why he becomes the big Holt out George Romero instead of just getting eaten. He's like in his body.
His art consumed him.
Right. So what's the third component to the elemental shard? So that would be the only missing.
That's why he's interested in Ultimis, I guess.
Oh God, you're kidding! I'm gonna have to make a thread or something. I'm typing up a thread as we speak. This is like one of my favorite just tangential topics of the storyline. George Romero, great guy in real life. Rest in peace. Yeah, I love talking about this. So what do you think about that angle of him being corrupted? Do you think that would be more plausible than having like a informant?
I mean, I think anything's possible. It sort of begs the question, why? Because I liked the sort of angle that he was someone who just got in over his head, in the sense that he's just interested in, it's like us, right? We're doing a podcast about zombies, and maybe because of his connections and stuff, he was able to find some, or just really good journalism skills, was able to find some information, and that just kind of seemed to be the way the story was going. But yeah, it doesn't really account for the hulked out George and why he's special. I mean, maybe.
I had another thought. What if the reason he chose Siberia as the shooting site, and specifically that kind of general area that you see in the cutscene, is because he was waiting for Ultimis. He knew they were coming.
He was going to be there.
He wanted to see them. He was going to catch them on camera. They're like the Bigfoot, or his Bigfoot.
Well, I think, what does show lend a lot of credibility to your theory is that's why they had actual ammunition in their guns.
Right, yeah.
That's
They had actual ammo. They were like ready for this eclipse. Yeah, they were ready for it.
just a little sad considering the four actors involved. didn't
Right.
didn't know that,
Yeah, I do
but
wonder if like. Also wonder if Call of the Dead, the map itself, does that take place on Phobos? Like, is I guess it couldn't because you don't hear from Pablo. Like he's not in the lighthouse.
yeah.
There's a whole thing with the lighthouse and the beam from the submarine, and maybe he sends it through a portal. You know,
There's no like
that's
weird
the
eclipse
goldenrod.
stuff, right? Like nothing really weird happens in terms of the
Not really. No, there's
yeah.
just like there's stuff like outside the area. Like there's the a lighthouse that sends like a Morse code. But yeah,
And the actors. Okay, so there's the bad version, like the fracture where they all die, right? Because there's the one in the Pentagon where JFK dies. But what's the sort of canon fate of the actors?
I don't think it's ever said. I think it's just they're missing.
Because
Just and Sally's just looking for them. But I would presume they died. But I don't know.
it's just weird to think. I mean, I guess some of those we haven't really. Well, I guess The Walking Dead was still going on, and Danny Trejo made movies afterwards. But it's just kind of funny to think that, like, I guess in that universe, those actors just went missing.
Right.
Like, it would make
Also, I mean, you see George Romero's glasses in Talking Totems, so
man.
maybe it's just they eventually just passed. I don't know. Hard to say.
It's the,
Yeah, Call of Duty, great map, great lore. Talk about one of my favorite topics. So thank you for joining me today, Matt.
no problem.
If you like that podcast, go ahead and give a like. Comment some ideas. Subscribe for more in the future. And so thanks, guys. See ya.